definitions. Accreditation, the process that establishes that an educational program meets an established standard of achievement. Its purpose is to assure the maintenance and enhancement of an appropriate educational foundation. The process is generally done by regular external monitoring using validated criteria and procedures. Certification, the official or legal recognition of an individual's qualifications. Next definition, structured learning activities. Educational opportunities that provide a fundamental level of knowledge relevant to the practice of architecture throughout Canada. Unstructured or self-directed learning activities. Educational opportunities that have been selected by an individual. These activities must relate to the practice of architecture or business and must be relevant to the architect's specific situation. Introduction. Canada's provincial and territorial governments have jurisdiction over professional practice. This responsibility is entrusted by legislation to various provincial and territorial professional associations which regulate members of their respective professions for the protection of the public. Provincial and territorial associations of architects, sometimes referred to as licensing authorities, have established admission requirements and standards to ensure that candidates are competent to practice architecture. The 10 provincial associations of architects and the Northwest Territories Association of Architects have adopted common admission standards, which include the 3 E's: education, experience, examination. These 3 components may overlap to the benefit of the student or intern. Writing certain sections of the examination for architects in Canada, or the ExAC, or the Architect Registration Examination, ARE, permits the intern to apply or demonstrate knowledge, skills, and abilities acquired during internship. So this figure 1, pathway to the profession, we have the 3 E's. Under education, it's an accredited degree or degree/diploma not accredited by CACB or registration prior to certification process. Under experience, there is the complete intern architect program. And then the examination is to pass the ExAC or ARE examination. Then that leads to the architectural license/registration that's issued by the Provincial or Territorial Architectural Association. And then that's followed by continuing education or professional development, or comply with requirements of the Provincial or Territorial Architectural Association. Next we have education. The role of the Canadian Architectural Certification Board, or the CACB. The CACB is a national, independent, non-profit corporation. The directors are elected from individuals nominated by the Canadian Architectural Licensing Authorities, SALA, CALA, and the Canadian Council of Universities, Schools of Architecture, the CCUSA, and the Canadian Architecture Student Association, CASA. The CACB is a decision-making and policy-generating body. It is the sole organization recognized by the architectural profession in Canada to assess the educational qualifications of architecture graduates certification program and to accredit professional degree programs in architecture that are offered by Canadian universities, the Accreditation program. The CACB's head office is in Ottawa, Ontario. It adheres to the principles of fairness, transparency, clarity, and ethical business practices in all of its activities. The CACB receives its mandate from the CALA and the CCUSA to certify educational qualifications of individual architectural graduates, to accredit professional architecture programs at Canadian universities, to certify professional qualifications of broadly experienced foreign architects, the BEFA program, and number 4, collaborate and conduct research nationally and internationally as it relates to architectural accreditation and academic certification. The Canadian Education Standard. The Canadian Education Standard for Architects, CES, is the academic qualification requirement established by the Canadian Architectural Licensing Authorities, CALA, for candidates seeking to practice architecture in Canada. The CES has been developed in accordance with both the core principles of the UNESCO/UIA Charter for Architectural Education and the relevant sections of the UIA Accord on Recommended International Standards on Professionalism in Architectural Practice. Individuals can satisfy the requirements of the Canadian Education Standard in 3 ways: accredited degree or diploma not accredited by CACB, and registration prior to the certification process. Next is accredited degree. CES requirements can be satisfied by obtaining a professional degree, a master's degree in Canada, from an architecture program accredited by the CACB or its US counterpart organization, the National Architectural Accrediting Board, Inc., NAAB. Degrees or diplomas not accredited by CACB CES requirements can be satisfied by obtaining a professional degree in architecture from an education institution in a foreign country, except the United States, or from one of the Canberra Accord signatories since January 1st, 2010. CES requirements may also be satisfied by obtaining a professional diploma in architecture from the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, the RAIC syllabus program, a combination of academic and design studio education and practice experience. You can refer to their website for additional information. Registration prior to the certification process. So by obtaining a degree from one of the Canadian Schools of Architecture listed below prior to the implementation of the CACB accreditation system in 1991. This was from University of British Columbia, UBC, University of Calgary, Technical University of Nova Scotia, TUNS, it's currently called Dalhousie University, Université Laval, University of Manitoba, McGill University, UDM, University of Toronto, and University of Waterloo. You can refer to the CACB website for details about each approach to satisfying the requirements of the CES. Alternate pathways to licensure. Licensure may be achieved following several alternate pathways. Broadly experienced foreign architect certification. This licensure can be achieved by submitting academic records and a portfolio of projects, completing a self-assessment, and participating in an interview process with architects licensed to practice in Canada. A foreign licensed architect may then receive certification and can apply to a provincial or territorial regulator for a license to practice. Candidates may be required to upgrade their education by taking appropriate courses and workshops. Refer to their website. Next we have broadly experienced architects administered by the AIBC. As well, for those complying with AIBC experience requirements, licensure may be achieved by submitting a portfolio of projects, completing a self-assessment, and practicing in an interview process with architects licensed to practice in British Columbia. An applicant who has not met the usual requirements for registration through education, experience, and examination may then become licensed to practice. Refer to the website. And the final grandfathering process is the registration prior to certification process. So an additional pathway to licensure can be achieved for those who qualify under the following conditions: through registration or licensing by a provincial or territorial association of architects prior to July 1st, 1976, or for the province of Quebec through registration or licensing by the Order des Architectes de Quebec prior to 1992, or for the province of Alberta through certification by the University's Coordinating Council. Professional degree programs in architecture. University programs in architecture provide education that includes critical analysis and integration of knowledge. Analytical study and theoretical courses provide general knowledge requirements required to undertake the design and construction phases involved in the development of the built environment. Subject areas include, first is design, and under design we have design theories, precedents, methods, design skills, design tools, program analysis, program development, site context and design, urban design, detailed design, design documentation. It's culture, communications, and critical thinking. We have critical thinking and communication, architectural history, architectural theory, cultural diversity, global perspectives, and ecological systems. Next is technical knowledge, regulatory systems, material, structural systems, envelope systems, comprehensive design, and lastly, professional practice, which is the architectural profession, ethical and legal responsibilities, modes of practice, professional contracts, and project management. Design studio is the cornerstone of architectural education. It is the integration of academic, cultural, and technical studies with complex problem solving in a project-based learning environment. Design studio enables students to develop creative solutions to specific architectural issues while developing self-reliance, teamwork, and analytical skills necessary to become practicing architects. Architectural education is difficult and requires a high degree of self-direction and internal motivation. Students are generally critiqued in a group setting, encouraging engagement with fellow students and enhanced learning outcomes. Undergraduate pre-professional programs in architectural studies are offered by both accredited and non-accredited post-secondary institutions. The master's level professional degree, a requirement to become an intern in architectural practice, is currently offered at 12 accredited Canadian University schools of architecture. Accredited schools of architecture can operate independently but collaborate through the Canadian Council of University Schools of Architecture, CCUSA. Entrance requirements to university programs vary. Prospective students should review the programs and application requirements thoroughly for each school. Students transferring from undergraduate to graduate programs in different schools should examine academic requirements carefully. A typical combination of an undergraduate degree in architectural studies plus a graduate professional master's degree will usually involve 6 years of study. This may be lengthened by cooperative work terms or transfers from one school to another. Several accredited schools of architecture offer an extended professional master's degree, 3 to 3.5 years, for those students who enter the program with an undergraduate degree in subjects other than architectural studies. Accreditation of professional degrees Accreditation of professional degree programs. Accreditation is the public recognition accorded to a professional program that meets established professional qualifications and educational standards through initial and periodic evaluations. The CACB only accredits programs that are intended by their institution to be professional degrees in architecture that lead to licensure. Professional accreditation of a program means that it has been evaluated by the CACB and substantially meets the educational standards that comprise an appropriate education for an architect. The accreditation process requires self-assessment by the institution or program, and an evaluation of the self-assessment by the CACB, and a site visit and review conducted by a team representing the CACB. The CACB looks at the accreditation of architectural education within a broad frame and with an atmosphere of cooperation and mutual respect. The CACB strives to create and maintain conditions that will encourage the development of architectural educational practices suited to the institutional history, mission, culture, and condition particular to the program, and assist in programs in fulfilling the broad requirements of the profession of architecture. CACB conditions and terms for accreditation, CACB procedures for accreditation. These are the guiding documents for the accreditation of programs offering professional degrees in architecture. They outline the requirements that the accredited programs must meet and the procedures to follow to ensure a uniform, fair, and equitable accreditation process that will uphold the minimum standards in architectural accreditation. The CACB conditions and terms for accreditation and the CACB procedures for accreditation are companion documents that should be read together. In both documents, words including shall, must, and other grammatically imperative terms set forth a requirement, while may indicates a suggestion. Terms of accreditation as well as accreditation information and documents are published on each School of Architecture's RAIC syllabus. The RAIC syllabus program is the national alternative path to architectural licensure in Canada. It is owned and managed by the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada with support from its education service provider, Athabasca University. It is a combination of academic study, design studio, and work experience. Academic courses are provided online. Design studios are operated in 12 cities across Canada, with instruction provided by volunteer licensed practitioners. Extensive work experience is required to graduate from the program. Syllabus students are required to be employed in architectural practice and work under the supervision of an architect licensed to practice in Canada. Students entering the program may receive credit for post-secondary education in architectural technology or other areas of study. The syllabus program is challenging, requiring a high degree of self-motivation and exceptional time management skills. Next we have experience, internship and architecture program. The objective of internship prior to licensing and registration is to ensure that the candidate gains enough experience to meet generally recognized standards of practical skill and professionalism, and to practice architecture in a way that protects the public interest. The provincial and territorial associations of architects established the internship in architecture program, the IAP. The IAP is a standardized national system for periodic documentation and evaluation of internship activities. It provides a structured transition between formal education and registration and licensing. In addition, the program encourages experienced practitioners to become more involved in the development of their future colleagues. Candidates are advised to register for the IAP with their provincial or territorial architectural association as soon as they are eligible. Eligibility occurs after candidates have completed their professional master's degree or the RAIC syllabus program. Procedures for applying to become an intern are described in the IAP manual, which includes guidelines, forms, sample letters, and the Canadian Experience Record Book, a requirement for recording work experience. It's important to note is that each provincial or territorial regulator has its own rules governing internship. It is the intern's responsibility to review the IAP Schedule B for the conditions and rules governing internship for the jurisdiction in which they are registered. On application, candidates must complete the appropriate form to confirm the names of employers or the equivalent and mentors. The Canadian Experience Record Book, or CERB, is also recognized on the RAIC, or is also available on the RAIC website as an interactive form to be completed and printed for submission to the licensing authorities by interns. Several regulators have adopted an automated online portal system for a more streamlined recording and validating of intern experience. The role of the employers direct and supervise interns daily, assessing the quality of their work, and certify the intern's documentation of work experience. The supervising architect should have a detailed understanding of the scope and quality of the intern's work, afford the intern opportunities for challenge and growth, and provide a pathway for career development. The role of the mentor. It is the intern's responsibility to manage the internship and proactively seek guidance from both the mentor and the supervising architect. The mentor is an architect recruited by the intern. The mentor meets with the intern regularly to review the progress of the intern, comment on the experience gained, and discuss the intern's career goals and broad professional issues. The mentor can also act as a sounding board for issues the intern may be experiencing or as a peer-to-peer colleague with the intern's employer. Experience categories. The internship in architecture program requires interns to complete a total of 3,720 hours of experience over a minimum of 2 years in the following categories: designing construction documents for a minimum of 2,200 hours, construction administration for 520 hours, and management as 240 hours. Additional hours in any of the 17 categories of the practice listed in the Canadian Experience Record Book can be up to 760. Next we have the examination for architects in Canada, the ExAC. 20th century, a standardized test, the architect registration exam, was adopted in Canada. It is administered through NCAR, the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. Starting in 2007, the licensing authorities had developed the examination for architects in Canada. Since 2013, the ExAC has been adopted across all jurisdictions in Canada. The exam is set annually and is a high-stakes professional examination. The ExAC is comprised of 4 sections and covers the following topic areas, as set out in the Internship in Architecture program across several broad themes. Section 1, Programming, Site and Environmental Analysis, Coordinating Engineering Systems, Cost Management, Schematic Design, Design Development. Section 2, we have Code Research from NBC 2015 edition, the National Building Code. Section 3 is Final Project. Section 4 is Bidding, Contract Negotiations, Construction Phase in the Office, Construction Phase on Site, and Project Management. The principal sources of the examination content include the Internship in Architecture program, Canadian Handbook of Practice for Architects, published by the RAIC and the National Building Code. The exam may call upon knowledge of contemporary design and practice standards such as sustainability standards or universal design. Refer to the ExAC website for more information. Interns are permitted to write the examination after meeting a minimum of 2,800 hours of experience. They must write all 4 sections of the ExAC on their first sitting, and if any sections are failed, must rewrite the failed sections in the following 2 years. If the intern fails to achieve a pass on all sections of the examination at this final attempt, they will be considered as a new candidate for the examination and will therefore have to rewrite all the sections of the examination as a first-time applicant. This means that a candidate may have successfully passed 3 sections, but if they failed the last one, their final attempt, they will have to rewrite the 4 sections, even those they passed. The ExAC is administered through a committee of Canadian architectural licensing authorities, the ExAC. The committee consists of 6 representatives from across the country appointed by the regulators. The ExAC oversees the annual examination and marking process, receives and approves STEM exam results, and manages the preparation and validation of new questions. In addition to the committee, many other volunteers assist with these tasks. Most provincial and territorial associations continue to recognize the architecture registration exam administered by the U.S. National Council of Architectural Registration Boards to support reciprocal licensing for architects throughout much of North America. Those considering working in a cross-border jurisdictions and writing either or both the ExAC and the ARE should consult with their provincial and territorial association of architects. You can also see Chapter 1.7 for this, the International Architectural Organizations. The ARE, which is administered in computer format only, is subdivided into 7 divisions, which may be written in any order and at any time at various testing centers in Canada and the United States. In order to begin their examinations, interns must obtain approval from their provincial or territorial regulator. This often includes meeting a minimum number of hours in their internship. Licensing/registration. The procedure. After successfully completing the 3 admission requirements, education, experience, and examination, interns may apply for professional licensing/registration to the Architectural Association of the province or territory in which they intend to practice. The intern will be granted a license, renewable on payment of annual dues, providing that the architect complies with the association's bylaws and code of ethics. Some provincial and territorial associations have additional requirements, such as attendance at admission courses and/or an oral examination. These additional prerequisites to licensing and registration are available from the Provincial or Territorial Association of Architects. In Quebec, French is the official language by virtue of the Charter of the French language, and it is the language used by the Ordre des Architectes du Québec, OAQ, in all communications. However, a member may request that the OAQ correspond in English. you must demonstrate working knowledge in the French language, therefore a written or oral examination administered by the Office de la Langue Française may be required. Several provincial regulators have a two-tiered licensing system. A certificate of practice or other form of firm permit, in addition to registration, may be required to offer services to the public. Becoming licensed permits the use of the title architect, but does not permit the individual to provide services to the public unless they are employed by an architect or engineer who holds a certificate of practice or other form of permit, or for engineering firms, a similar document. They obtain a certificate of practice or other form of firm permit from the provincial or territorial regulator, meeting the requirements for practice. This generally requires proof of professional liability insurance. Some architects may pursue professional licensure in order to complete a goal of becoming an architect, but then work in public service for developers or project manager firms or for private corporations. For a detailed understanding of the requirements for offering services to the public, consult the regulatory requirements in each province or territory. The reciprocity agreement between Canadian architectural licensing authorities. All provinces in the Northwest Territories have adopted common admission standards. The Canadian Education Standard, the Internship in Architecture Program, and the generalized use of the Examination for Architects in Canada, or the ARE, have made admission to the profession virtually identical across Canada. This has resulted in a reciprocity agreement between the Canadian Provincial and Territorial Associations of Architects, which facilitates mobility from one jurisdiction to another. Inter-recognition agreements between the NCARB and the former CCAC. The Canadian architectural profession was the first profession to negotiate an agreement with its counterpart in the United States under the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. The accord is called the Inter-Recognition Agreement between the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, NCARB, and the former Committee of Canadian Architectural Councils, CCAC. The common admission standards in both countries were contributing factors in reaching this agreement. The commonalities are as follows. The CACB's accreditation conditions and procedures are similar to those of the U.S. National Architectural Accrediting Board, NAAB. Both organizations recognize programs accredited by the other. Certain details related to Canadian political and demographic features are different. The internship in architecture programs' objectives, procedures, and durations are similar to those of the intern development program in the United States. The ExAC is recognized by NCARB as equivalent. The Architect Registration Examination is recognized in Canada. The CCAC and the NCARB signed the Inter-Recognition Agreement. However, each Canadian Provincial Architectural Association and each U.S. member board was required to ratify the agreement, forward a letter of undertaking, and append specific local requirements where necessary. When considering obtaining licensure in another jurisdiction, it is important to understand the regulatory requirements of the host and visiting jurisdictions in order to understand the ability to obtain licensure. Some jurisdictions, for example, require residency or proof of ability to work in the visiting jurisdiction. The Mutual Recognition Agreement, MRA. A Mutual Recognition Agreement is an agreement between two international licensing authorities whereby each authority agrees to recognize and accept the credentials of professionals from another authority. Over the years, there has been considerable work on the part of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada and CALA in negotiating mutual recognition agreements with other international architectural organizations. To date, there is an agreement between architectural licensing authorities from Mexico, the United States, and Canada, the Tri-National Agreement, as well as between Canada and the United States only. As of 2014, an agreement with Australia and New Zealand was finalized under the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) agreement. As of 2018, an MRA was signed between CALA and the Architects' Council of Europe (ACE) to take effect in 2019. Continuing education and professional development. All provincial and territorial licensing authorities have adopted mandatory continuing education programs, and all architects must participate in order to maintain licensure. Continuing education may also be referred to as professional development. The Union Internationale des Architectes uses the term continuing professional development, or CPD. Continuing education assists in fulfilling the primary mandate of the associations and the protection of the public by ensuring architects remain competent and current in new technologies and new design developments. Furthermore, these programs enable architects to develop new markets and to improve their practices. Each provincial and territorial association has slightly different continuing education requirements, and each association has its own system for recording continuing education credits or transcripts. The RAC has developed a national system and an electronic database which several associations have adopted. Also, the RAC has facilitated the standardization and harmonization of the various provincial and territorial continuing education programs across Canada. This work resulted in the production of the document entitled Quality Assurance for Continuing Education Activities for the Architecture Profession in Canada, which has been adopted by all associations. Learning activities, as described in the Quality Assurance document, are divided into two categories: structured learning and unstructured learning. Interns and architects should check each province or provincial association's continuing education, provincial and professional requirements to fully understand the various aspects of the programs. For example, architects can declare their primary jurisdiction for continuing education in one province or territory, and by annually submitting declaration forms to other provinces or territory in which they are licensed or wish to be licensed, the primary jurisdiction will submit the credits to meet the necessary continuing education requirements. For example, the OAA has the primary jurisdiction declaration form, and the AIBC has the out-of-province CES compliance form. Allied Industries Certification and Professional Development. In the past few years, several new certifications have become available to architects. LEED, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, is the most widely recognized and widely used green building rating system in the world. LEED accreditation is associated with the LEED rating system. It ensures that professionals have the knowledge they need to take a project through LEED certification and are well versed in many aspects of green building. There are two options for LEED credentialing: Green Associate and Accredited Professional, AP. The LEED Green Associate can become a LEED AP, a designation which is tailored to a specific LEED rating system that includes LEED for building design and construction, operations and maintenance, interior designs and construction, neighboring designs, and healthcare, retail, and school projects and albums. See their website. The Certified Passive House Designer and CPHD certification is usually obtained by professionals who have previous architecture and building knowledge. Normally, passive house designers work in planning offices on the implementation of the Passive House Standard. And then the Certified Passive House Consultant certification, on the other hand, may be acquired by persons coming from different fields. Passive House Consultants usually contribute to the dissemination of the Passive House Standard through their work as researchers or speakers, or as decision makers in government authorities. Both titles are equal in terms of qualification with reference to the Passive House body of knowledge possessed by certified persons. The requirements for attaining this certificate and for renewal are the same for both groups of people. Our website, the Certified Energy Manager (CEM) certification covers the technical, economic, and regulatory aspects of effective energy management. The Canadian Institute for Energy Training is exclusively authorized Canadian trainer of the Association of Energy Engineers for delivery of the CEM training and certification program. The Sustainability Facility Professional provides skills for creating, managing, and operating sustainable facilities and to continually improve a facility's impact on the environment and the community. The SFP credential is designed for all facility managers and like-minded professionals with an interest in sustainable practice. It is noteworthy that the above-mentioned certification is valued in demonstrating a level of educational and experience achievement in a specific area of building and site design. Are the branded products of non-profit organizations? They do not reflect an exclusive scope of practice or expanded scope of practice of architectural services. Plus, we have the references here if you want to check it out. There's the appendix, and that was chapter 1.5, Admission to the Profession.